A fall stimulus check may look like this, especially right now with all the increased stocks and information. As of recently, I have all the details for you in this video. Let's get into it right now. Alright, so I do want to talk about this in a little bit more detail here because the landscape has changed pretty substantially over the last week or so. I want to talk about what has been discussed as well as what the fall stimulus check may actually look like for the low income and the fixed income. Now, why do I point out those groups in particular? Simply because this is what they exactly talk about in their proposals, in their ideas. Right now, in the event of the fall stimulus check, we already know it is hardly going to be focused on the low income and the fixed income, which is actually really cool because I do know that a lot of you here in the community are low income or you're living on a fixed income from benefits, including Social Security, retirement, SSDI, survivors, SSI, VA, RRB, or like I said, maybe you're low income or even no income. Now again, remember over the last couple years here, the previous 3 checks that we received were technically called economic impact payments. In other words, they were stimulus checks, which is what we've been calling them. But the formal name behind them was EIP, Economic Impact Payments. Now, over the last couple of years, here are the checks that were distributed. With the economic impact payment, and other words, to stimulate the economy. However, do we need any economy to be stimulated right now? Well, depends on who you ask. But the economy is in a much different situation today than what it was over the last 2 years, or especially in early 2020, late 2020 and early 2021. The economy is in a very different place today. However, as we mentioned, stimulus checks that may indicate what kind of payments we need going forward. So again, I do want to point this out simply because some of the announcements that we've heard out of the Congress as well as the economists and other high-profile people out there right now are exactly pointing to exactly that. So first off, we do know that as of right now, probably over the last week and a half or so, I want to say there's probably been maybe 6, 7, possibly even 8 different proposals that I have seen come out here. Just in the last, I'm gonna call it probably 7, 8, probably 9 days or so. We've seen about whatever, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 of these different proposals coming out. Now, all of these proposals are basically called something different, and they're coming out as many different things here. So number one, we've seen direct checks being announced. We've also seen other things coming out as well in the form of vouchers, right? Vouchers for gas. We've seen a number of these coming up as well. So this would not necessarily be cash in your bank account, but the major fall down behind that would be if I have a voucher. Okay, I don't really want or need the voucher. I could maybe trade it with family member or friend, or maybe some stranger at the gas station. Now here's what I can say. I did not see any specified time frame for when these vouchers may be redeemed for the cash, but again, that could be an option going forward. So the worst thing about that is that if you don't use the voucher, you would actually have to hold on to this thing and feel like, okay, at some point in future, this may have cash value. Something else I want to point out, there are in some location around the country right now, there are these cards that you could get as a gas vouchers. Again, same thing like a voucher that we send to you from maybe something that Congress were doing on the federal level out to every state. Otherwise, there are certain states, different cities and locations within different states around the country right now that offering these vouchers as well. However, let's quickly talk about what's going on the state level as well, because we need to point this out, because realistically on the state level it's essentially a stimulus check, but again, they're calling it all kinds of different things. First off, in the state of California, I'm just using California as an example. I'm going to use a few different states here as examples, but there are multiple different states out there right now that are doing very similar things. But again, I'm using California just as an example. Just the other day, they introduced a tax rebate in the form of $400. But around the country right now, there are multiple different states that are introducing a lot of different things right now. Stimulus checks, direct checks, tax rebates, tax credits, war checks. So this is not something that is uncommon. We've heard this many times before, but I want you to be very aware. All of this is in relation to a direct check, a stimulus check. That's basically what it all comes down to. Now, when it comes to the federal government, this is where we really need to keep our eyes peeled. All of the states coming up with their own programs and their own, stimulus programs and stimulus checks, things like that. So there could be an introduction of basically anything out of the Congress right now, considering that they have introduced so many different things here. Over the last week or so, I would say that this is actually a really good thing. This is like a really big win when it comes to the low income and fixed income going forward. Because with all of these introductions that we've seen as of recently, we're doing a few things here. First off, we're desensitizing Congress to the idea once again of checks going out to the people. That's a good thing. So that's good. Now at the same time, we want them to continue playing around with these ideas, because the more that they play with it, the higher the number gets. We've seen this before. The more that they continue talking about checks, usually the higher the amount actually gets, because you get one person like Nancy Pelosi, for example, yesterday. So my point is, the more that they play around with this stuff, the more the numbers get enlarged. So that's a good thing when it comes to us. And any potential type of stimulus check or direct checks on anything like this going forward. And yesterday alone, a list of 55 executive orders was presented to the president from the Progressive Caucus that they want to get done here within the next couple of months. Well, maybe we throw a stimulus check or direct check or an anti-inflationary check onto the list of executive orders. So as long as we're getting things done here, why not throw one of those onto the list of things that the president needs to do? So anyway, a lot of different moving parts here, as you can see, with everything going on. But either way, we've got to watch all this very closely, as I always do. So don't worry, I'll continue to keep track of all this for you, and I'll break it all down into short videos. So if you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe down below, as I will continue watching it and bringing it to you every single day. I hope this one helps you out, and we've got to be aware of all of these different terms that may be thrown around by Congress, because they may slip up something out there that may have slipped by our literator, thinking that we were watching for a stimulus check. Meanwhile, they've introduced called an inflationary check or an anti-inflationary check or a direct check, something like that. So anyway, we've got to keep a wide net here and watch very closely to anyway. I'll do that for you. Enjoy your day. Thanks again for watching this. Subscribe down below, and I'll catch you again later in the next one.